What's up, everybody? Episode 421. We are your hosts, Jasper Rivers and Eric Muller. I'm
Cheers.
in sunny Panama City. Eric is in the cold Oudewild. Is it snowing yet over there?
No, it doesn't get a lot of snow up here. Every once in a while we'll get some snow, but no, it's beautiful out, dude. The sun is shining. It's a little chilly in the shade, but nah, it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. And you're spending half of the week now in Oudewild and half of the week in San Diego.
Yeah, that's right. So we leave San Diego, I would say Sundays at 3 p.m. And then we'll get up here, 2 hours after that in Idlewild. And then we'll spend Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, and then we leave Wednesday to head back down to San Diego. And then we spend Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning in San Diego. And man, it's freaking awesome. It's incredible. Like we live in a small surfer town called Leucadia at the very, very top of San Diego. So it's very similar vibes to Idlewild, where everyone kind of knows each other, and it's not a big city, where both are small little towns. So it's freaking awesome. Like we start the week in the mountains, and we go hiking every day in the mountains, which is freaking awesome. And then we spend the end of the week at the beach, which is pretty incredible. I haven't started surfing yet, but it's on the list.
I remember back in February when I arrived in Leucadia. Yeah. That was one of the first things that we said to each other. I was like, all right, we got to go surfing.
Yeah, never did it. Not once.
We never did.
No. Hey, dude, I would bring the microphone a bit closer to your mouth.
All right.
Yeah, like kind of tilt it down if you could.
Right on. Well, let's talk about technology. Like one thing that we were really surprised about when we bought Strawberry Creek was that the former owners were not using any type of technology, any type of systems.
Zero.
I remember we one of the questions that we asked as part of the buying process was we asked a lot of questions, right? Clarifying questions. And one of the questions was like, what technology are you currently using? And I think we asked her about some specific stuff. And, her response was kind of like, I'm not sure exactly what that is. We just use pen and paper and, text messaging.
Yeah.
So that was a big surprise to us.
Yeah, big surprise, but also a big opportunity, right? The previous owners just kind of ran this property as a traditional vacation rental business, so as they get, requests or bookings that come in, she would write it down on a piece of paper, right? When she had to schedule the cleanings with the cleaners, she would just write it down on a piece of paper, take a photo of the paper, and text it to them, right? And that's how they would schedule the cleanings. So it came from a very old school vacation rental before Airbnb, like the days before Airbnb. The days before Airbnb, that's what we used to do with vacation rentals. Like on my first few vacation rentals, we would write everything down on paper. We would do that exactly. So she kind of stuck with that method of running her properties. So for us coming in here and installing all this new tech, it's been freaking awesome, man. Like it's just kind of streamlined the whole process for us. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't challenging. We got it done in a few weeks. Fully, along with our other SOPs. And now the property is essentially efficient. It's running by itself, which is pretty amazing. We're very hands-on right now because we're trying to, one, learn the property. Two is really deliver world-class experiences so we can build up the credibility on the new Airbnb profiles. But yeah, all in all, it's been to me, I think that was the biggest opportunity, was coming in here and installing technology. Not even just the tech that we're talking about when it comes to door locks and all that other stuff, but also, the days that I'm up here, I'm splitting my day between overnight success tasks, and then also now the property tasks. And I got all the properties now on timers, so the lightings go on and off at sunset, and then at 10 o'clock when noise out, when the quiet hour kicks in. So stuff like that, fully automating the property, and it's been a really awesome experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been focusing on the online part. So I've set up our PMS, Hostfully. I had an onboarding call with Breezeway today, which is awesome. I really, really love their system. Super excited to start using that.
Yep.
We've have Wheelhouse set up. So that's kind of like the online side of it. But I would love to hear a little bit more about those, the home automation that you installed with the lights going off and on automatically.
Yeah, it's all simple stuff. It's stuff that, we've been preaching to our students for years to install in their properties. And, this is the first time that I've had to do, well, let me check myself. I was about to say this is the first time I had to do this in a community, but I've done this in an apartment building before where we installed digital locks in all the properties and all that stuff. But here it's just like, the whole experience is pretty incredible. If you guys, for the listeners, you guys want to see the actual property, go to strawberrycreekvillage.com. And then our Instagram handle, which I can't wait to get a new handle. We took it over from the owner. For some reason, she didn't spell out village the whole way, but it's like at Strawberry Creek VLLGE, I think it is. So you could see, the whole experience. But the first step that we did was we installed the digital locks, right? So, and there's a big learning lesson here because I haven't done a lot of this personally in a couple of years. When I was first starting my short-term rental business, I was the one installing everything myself. As we started scaling, we had a maintenance crew that just installed everything for us. And then for the last year and a half, I've stepped out of that side of the business to focus on overnight success with you. So now we're going back into it, and we're dealing with, we have all these tech partners and all this tech that we want to use to streamline these properties. So now I'm actually in it, and I'm seeing it from a user standpoint, and it's really interesting, man. Like, first thing we did was install Schley locks, right? And I forget I think it's Schlag encode.
Schlager. You guys, I don't know how you guys pronounce it. It's a German. It's a German.
Nobody
brand.
understands how to pronounce it, Jasper.
How do you pronounce it?
I have no idea. I make it up. Schlag, slage, sludge, sludge. But regarding that actual lock itself, I think we're using the lock. It's called Encode, ENCODE. So far it's been awesome. It's been pretty cool. So we installed those. They hook up to our PMS. So we could just kind of manage those locks and the codes, remotely, of course. This is something that, most hosts already know is how to use all this stuff. Second is we installed NoiseAware indoor and outdoor. NoiseAware has really evolved over the last few years. It's really freaking awesome. The process to install it and set up the account and all of that literally took me 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. I think the entire village I got done in 30 minutes or less. So super easy to use, super easy to set up. The one challenge that I did have with NoiseAware is their new. This is the first time that I personally installed the outdoor lock or the outdoor sensor. I couldn't figure out how to screw it to the wall, and they give you these little stickers to stick it to the wall, double stick tape, and we're missing one, and we can't figure out where it is. It's either the guest took it, the cleaner threw it away, or a bird ate it. I don't know, but that was the only challenge is to really secure it, and I'm sure there's a way of doing that. But that was the only challenge I ran into with that. And then lastly is automating all the lights. So we have obviously the quiet hour starts at 9 o'clock here in the village. And we have all these beautiful, cafe lights that go throughout the village and then all the way down to the park down below us. So I have the lights outside on a regular timer. The owner would just plug it in and unplug it, right, every day, which was crazy to me. And then so I just bought a regular timer, set that up. So now it's beautiful. It goes on at 6 o'clock, sun sets at 6:15, and then it shuts off at 9 during our quiet hours, right?
Mhm.
And then the lower park that is down below us, that shuts off at 10 because at night looks freaking amazing. So we have it on for an extra hour. I think as of now, that's the only tech. Oh, no. And then we also installed Apple TV. So that was really cool. And we're working with a company now. We'll talk about this once we get closer to it. But we're talking to a company that's actually installing software on the Apple TV to create almost like a home guide experience through Apple TV branded with our branding, which I'm super excited about. So outside of that, man, it's, the property is still kind of the way that we took it over. So what's your feedback on your side as far as like installing the tech and managing it on your side?
Yeah, no, it's just really fun. Like, because some of the tools that we're using, like I'm not familiar with them, right? So this is kind of like a learning process as well. But I'd say I'm really enjoying the locks, because I'm realizing, like, other than the convenience for the guest, there's a lot of benefits to having those locks, right? Number
Yep.
one, it's security, right? Like the codes that we're sending are temporary, right? We don't, like, guests are never going to lose a key. Like, I remember I had that challenge when I very first started my very first property in Amsterdam. I remember the one time my guest lost a key, right? And they were locked out. That was a big challenge, right?
Yeah,
So
it's terrible.
that's just being able to to make sure that that doesn't happen. The security side of it, that nobody can copy the key and come back a week later and empty out the home.
Yeah.
Right. So there's the security aspect of it, there's the guest convenience aspect, but then there's also, it helps us with the management too, because we can now see, when is a guest checking in, when are they opening the door, when are they locking it. We can see and we could talk about how we set up the codes as well, because I think that's pretty useful too, because our cleaner has her own code, we have our own code. So I can see on my phone, I can see when the cleaner arrives, when you're entering the property, we can see everything.
Yeah, so let's go deeper into that. So excuse me. I guess this is really, this this part is really for people who haven't stepped into this too much with the digital locks, and especially at scale. But for us, the system that we created around the locks were, one is we have an admin code for all the properties, and that's just for our team. We don't give that out to anybody, nobody outside of myself, Jasper, and a couple other in-house team members have access to that. So we can, again, track who's coming in and who's going out with that code. Two is our cleaner. Up here, we're still figuring out how to manage our cleaner, and that's going to be a whole nother podcast, is the experience, the process of managing this person and developing that out. But she has her own code to enter in and out. We pay her hourly on this village. That's how she was working on this village for years. And as we took it over, we decided to keep that in place as of right now. So now we can see when she arrives to the village and opens up the first door, we can start tracking her hours based on that. And when she locks everything down to leave for the day, right? So we have a way to really manage our cleaners as best as possible, which I think is really awesome. Outside of that, we have obviously the guest codes, which right now we're manually making them because we're still setting up the tech. But eventually they're going to be automatically getting codes based on when they check in and when they check out, right? So that then we can fully automate that. We don't have to manage that. Something else that we did was we also installed we also installed a backup key lockbox on every single property, and we set codes for that. But we also set a system to where that's for absolute emergencies. We only give that out to the guest only if something wrong with the lock, right? Like tech breaks down, whatever, they can't access the digital lock, only then will we give them that code. But part of the system is that we only allow that code to be used once. So the moment we give it out, we have to go back and change that lock, because that's where the system breaks down. The moment that anyone gets access to the key, that's where this whole digital security actually starts breaking down. So our cleaners don't even have that. They don't have a backup key to the property. Right. And then lastly, in the cleaner's closet or the cleaner's garage, we have backup keys in backup lock boxes. So we have a whole system here, and keeping track of all of that has been really interesting. But the whole goal here is to fully automate it, and then also release any tension of any keys being missing. A couple other things to know, and I did some TikTok videos on this that should be coming out soon. A couple other things to know is that when you're installing the digital lock, you also want to put a closet door handle on the bottom. So you don't want to install a handle that has a key to it, because cleaner or guests can lock themselves out. So it's a closet door handle on the bottom. And then also on the back door, we match the keys to the front door. Okay. So that was just some basic other stuff. So for the people that are doing this at scale, I know you guys know this stuff already, but this is part of what we're doing to quickly take over this community. And I think it's important to share as a whole. We're also going to be very, this is something that we should talk about too. We're going to also be very transparent on how we like this tech. We didn't have a great experience ordering these locks. And they were really tricky to get set up. They don't work on 5G network. We had to set up a 2G network and get those locks set up on 2G. So we had some challenges set up on that, but throughout the coming months, we'll share our real life experience on if we like these, if we replace them, the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and just to be clear, we are using the Schlage Encode BE489 deadbolt Century trim.
Yes. Yeah. So far it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I'm really enjoying the Schlage Home app, where we can see all the codes. Super easy to set up a code, change the codes, all of that stuff. I'm excited to automate the whole process, as you mentioned, through Remote Lock and through Hostly. That's how we're going to set that up. And the locks are pretty affordable, I would say. They're only $250. So
yeah, they're not terrible. They're not terrible. They're probably standard for it. You could also go right into Home Depot and buy these. I didn't know that. I was at Home Depot looking at some other stuff, and I found the exact same lock. So you can go in there for the same price, save yourself some shipping, all of that. But tell us about the experience of how you're hooking it up from the lock to our PMS. What is the process from when a guest checks, when a guest books it, to how they actually get the code without us being involved in that?
Yeah. So we still need to set that up, but I can tell you what the process is, right? Once a booking comes in, all the booking information obviously gets imported by Hostly. Then automatically a code will be created. It will be the last 4 digits of their phone number. So it's easy for the guests to remember that code. And then there will be an automated message that will go out. And, I'm thinking to schedule that maybe like a day before they arrive, or maybe on the morning of, when they arrive, so that there's no need for them to really have that code like 2 weeks in advance. Right.
No, for sure.
So yeah, and then once the guest checks out, the code will be automatically deleted.
Right. So what tech is actually doing that? Is that going through Hostfully, or is that a third-party tool?
So that is going through Remote Lock. So Remote Lock is a company that has 2 parts to it, right? They sell the locks, but they also have a monthly subscription service where you can manage the locks through Remote Lock. Now, I think you can also hook them up directly with Airbnb, right? And there's also some other locks that you can hook up directly with Airbnb. But the reason that we chose to work with Hostly, one of the big reasons, is that Hostly integrates with all these different technology tools, right? So we can manage everything through Hostfully.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
so I'm excited to get this set up. One thing that I'm learning overall, just setting up all the technology, basically going from zero to having a complete technology stack set up, is it's quite a lot of work, right? And there's a bit of a process behind it when it comes to the onboarding. Initially I was thinking, well, I've used all these different tools. I'm sure they're all kind of similar. I'll just go in there and set everything up. And then after like 10 minutes, I was like, okay, I gotta just go through their onboarding process instead. Because there's all these platforms that work a bit differently, and like it's easy to make mistakes, and that can really damage the guest experience, right? Like I could easily just hook up Hostfully and then forget to block some dates, and we could get like a double booking or something. Right. So one learning lesson for me is, and I was talking to some of the Legends X students this week on the call as well. They were, some of them were having this similar experience where it's like, don't try to rush it. Like really take your time setting up technology. Really make sure you go through the onboarding process, watch the trainings or the demos, and just take it step by step. Because it takes a little bit of time to get familiar with everything, right? So I'd rather take my time and make sure that there's no mistakes and that we set up everything correctly, than versus trying to rush and get everything online as soon as possible.
Yeah, and these companies do a really good job with their onboarding processes, and this is why we chose to partner with these companies within Legends X. Is one, we love the companies and the founders and the whole team. Two, their tech is arguably the best in their space. But three, they have the best type of training around their tools. So yeah, it's interesting. Like obviously we're now going through another thing that we're doing along with this, and this is something that I want to talk about, is it's not just important to have your tech in place, but also your systems around how you use that tech, your references, all that. So in Legends X, one of the first things we teach our students is the playbook, right? And that was one of the first things that I brought into the company when we started working together, and we still use it to this day. We just created a brand new playbook. Actually, right before we bought this property, we created a new playbook for our new company, FreeWild. And what that does, there's a handful of different things that we use it for, but every single time we do something on the property, especially this tech, we build a whole system around how to do it, right? So I'm building systems around how to actually install the locks at the property, because it's not just installing a lock and moving on, right? It's the whole process of matching the keys, the closet door handle, it's installing the lock, setting up 2G network, doing that whole thing. There's so many different steps to it. So as we start scaling, so actually today at 3:00, I'm meeting the architect here at the property. And we're going to be starting the process on how do we add an additional 10 to 15 units to this property, right? So that means we're going to be adding an additional 10 to 15 units to our existing systems very quickly. So we need the exact process on how we do that, how we order it, how we install it, how do we set it up, how do we get it into our tech, how do we manage it? So that's really important too. So this is probably for the people who already have those locks set up, and they're like, hey guys, I already know all this stuff. The next step is what systems, what SOPs do you have in place to train your team now and in the future on how to actually use this stuff the way that you want it to be used. That's super important. And that's going to be the biggest thing for us on scale. And the reason why, I was talking to somebody the other day, they're like, Eric, why are you doing all this stuff yourself? Why is Jasper setting up the PMS and all this stuff? I'm like, guys, we want to be in this. We want to understand it from the user standpoint again, because it's been a while. It's been about 1.5 years since we've actually done anything real estate at a high level. We want to use this stuff so we can give feedback to our students. We can give feedback to our listeners on the podcast. We give feedback to our tech partners that we're actually working with. But then also we can develop the SOPs. That's the most important side of this. It's not installing the tech, it's building the system. So when we go to buy in 2022, when we go to buy the next FreeWild location, we have the exact process on how to roll all that out. So super important is, if you guys are rolling your eyes, like, we already know digital locks, that's not the point why we wanted to talk about it. It's like, this was our experience of using it, but two is like, this is how we're developing our SOPs so we can scale this company time and time again over the next few years.
Yeah, 100%. And it serves two purposes, right? Or now, actually, I would say it serves three purposes. Number one, creating those systems, and it also forces us to create the best system possible. All right, because once you start documenting what you're doing, your process, that's an incentive to really look at it and think, okay, well, is this actually the best way of doing it? Right. So that's number one. Number two, like you said, is, when we buy our next property, we already have everything, all the steps are already outlined. But then number three as well is, we don't want to, obviously we're not going to be managing, these properties ourselves the whole time, right? At some point we're going to hire people to manage it for us. So we need to have those. Yeah, exactly.
Very soon.
It's funny. I was joking to our Legends X student, like, I kind of feel like a hectic host right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we also need to be able to offload the management to other people, right? So yeah, I agree. The systems are extremely important, and it's super fun to be using the systems that we built for our students in Legends X. It's because we, just to give an example, like all that stuff that you were talking about when it comes to the smart locks, like all that information is in our property DNA sheet, right? Which is part of our property onboarding system. So anybody who needs that information in the future, it's all in one place. So
and that's a big part of why we're doing this all ourselves as well. Is, the property DNA sheet is a sheet that I developed for my business when I first got into the short-term rental industry, which was 6 years ago. And it's evolved all the way to the point where now, it's part of the Legends X 90-day program. And that's how we teach people how to onboard properties. One of the first things that we did, literally the first things we did when we bought this property, was pull out the property DNA sheet, started filling out all the data, right? And that's how you were able to get all the tech and the Airbnb listings and everything set up without ever having to be here. Right, was because of that property DNA sheet. But then also we have the opportunity to upgrade and see the holes in these systems, right? So now I built that when I was leasing properties, and then I took that and moved it into when I started managing properties. And now when we're back into buying properties and managing, now we're adding some more details to it, right? So that's a big part of just like kind of tearing all of our systems apart and going back into it. But this is something too I want to, I think we can wrap up on is obviously everybody knows that short-term rentals, Airbnbs, has got to a point where we can streamline all the tech, right? I do think that there's a threshold to the amount of tech that you want to put in your properties before it just gets way too complicated to manage. With that said, we are going pretty deep into the tech side of automating the home outside of the standard of noise aware and locks and Apple TV and all this other stuff, and really get into, another piece of tech that we're installing is Nest thermostats, right? So we're going through the whole process to be able to manage this and know the heartbeat of this property at any given time from anywhere in the world, right? But with that said, a part of what we're doing with FreeWild now is going through the process of hiring somebody who has the experience of doing this exactly, the tech side, and bringing them into our company to take this over as a whole. But it's really important for us to get in the beginning, get our hands dirty so we understand what the product is, right? Mm-hmm. So and where I'm going with this is, I'm getting, again, somebody I was speaking to the other day was like, what the hell are you guys doing setting all this up? Just hire people to do it. I'm like, yes, we're getting to that point. But I'll never forget the story of Elon Musk. There was a picture of Elon walking through a warehouse where one of his missiles had exploded, and they took all the pieces and laid it out in this warehouse so the engineers can go through it and see exactly why that missile or the spaceship exploded. And Elon Musk, the story is that Elon was in there for days at a time. He was sleeping on the floor and he was on his hands and knees. This is a billionaire going through these pieces as an engineer, looking at these pieces to see what was working, what wasn't working, right? That's my layman's mind trying to understand what Elon was doing. But what he was explaining was like, he has to understand the product. Of course, he has a whole team and billions of dollars to hire the best of the best to figure that out. But as the CEO or as the, as the leader of his company, he has to be in there understanding his product so they can improve it. That is, I'm not trying to compare what we're doing to what Elon is doing with colonizing Mars. But that's the way I'm looking at this. And this is why we're splitting our time of like staying in each one of these units to understand the product. So when we go to set up the tech, set up the systems, hire the people, create the experience for our guests, build the new units, we're coming from a place of experience and we understand it. So that's the whole reason why we're getting our hands dirty right now. Why, yesterday I'm screwing stuff into the walls and fixing things on this property. It's not because I have to do it. It's because I'm trying to understand the product so we can go back and scale this. Because over the next 5 years, we want to have 10 to 20 of these locations, right? So there's a lot to figure out there, and we're starting it with this one.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we have to be in the trenches to experience everything, and that reminds me of something. I've never been in Idlewild, right?
Yeah.
I'm messaging guests and I'm setting up listings and all of that without ever having been on the property. And if you work with a VA, one tip is, our team member Aaron sent me very, very detailed walkthrough videos.
Yep.
Right. It was like a 5 to 10 minute video per property where he went really deep into the smallest details. And that's super, super helpful. All right. So I think that's something that is really important to do if you have a virtual assistant and you're outsourcing, the messaging to the guest, is make sure they have like a solid walkthrough video, because otherwise they just don't understand what the property feels like. Right.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's super important. We do that, we're going to do that for every single property moving forward as well. But I've done that in the past as well. And it's just important to have it. Also, it's really important to have that in the beginning stages of you taking over the property. Because if you're running, when I was managing the luxury properties, I took over one person's huge luxury, beautiful property, and they were moving to Europe. And she said to me, she's like, I don't care about anything in the house. We're going to throw everything away if we weren't turning this into an Airbnb. And I did that walkthrough video for that exact reason, was to educate my VAs on how to communicate to the guests. The owners came back a year later and decided to fire me and run the Airbnb themselves. And as they were going through it, they were saying like, oh, this thing is missing, this is broken, this wasn't like this, whatever that was. And they were very emotional people. And I was able to go back to the video and show them like, no, this is exactly how I took over the property. This was the exact condition of this thing. So there's some insurance to that as well. Take some time, of course, but it's super important to do that. Yeah. But yeah, man, I'm excited for you to see Idlewild. I think you're gonna have a lot of fun up here.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last thing I wanted to mention as well is, we have 100% 5-star reviews so far.
Yeah.
We have nothing but 5-star reviews, which is awesome. But one thing I realized and I noticed is, we had a couple things, a couple small issues, right? We had somebody who was kind of a bit loud, and then the other guests, could hear it. We had a few other little things go wrong, but we still have 5-star reviews across the board. And I think that's just because the way that we've been communicating with our guests, just making it, a bit personal and building a bit of a relationship with the guest through our communication. I'm just noticing and realizing how important that is, right? Because, and this is something that you've said before as well, is like, yes, we want to optimize everything and use technology and all that stuff, but in the end of the day, we're dealing with people, right? And we have to make sure that we don't forget that.
Yeah, dude, it's that's a big thing that I'm noticing with these outsourced companies where you outsource 100% of your communication to these third-party companies. My gut is telling me that those services are not going to last in markets like this, right? So the reason why that worked so well and why that worked for me when I was scaling my management company and leasing company in San Diego was a majority of our properties were downtown. And the guests that were staying there, they want zero interaction with us. They didn't want to meet us. They just wanted a clean property, internet, and want to make sure that if there was a problem, someone was there to take care of it. They didn't care about my backstory. They didn't care about anything. So outside of that. So the VAs, my VA team at the time, they didn't need to know too much and build a deep rapport with them. They just needed to know that they were professional, that they were there to take care of them if something was concerned. It's like going into a hotel. No one really cares. It sounds terrible, but nobody really cares about the backstories of the people working at the hotel. They just want to know that those individuals at the hotel are professional and is going to take care of them, right? Mm-hmm. Moving into these markets, these secondary markets, which something that you and I've been preaching and the rest of the industry essentially is preaching, is that this is where travelers are going. This is the biggest opportunity. Real estate right now is buying these secondary markets. These guests, I don't know if you noticed this, but these guests are super personal. They want to know everything. They care about us. They care about they're asking our personal stories. I'm talking to them out in the lobby here and like in the common areas. There's such a personal connection. And I think outsourcing 100% of guest communication is not going to do well in these markets. And that's why I think our model of having multiple units in one location, having one individual who is the main responsibility, that person's responsibility is the guest experience here and is communicating. And we have a virtual staff behind them to support on the day-to-day stuff to make sure that people are getting codes and they're getting the welcome packages. And here's the top 10 restaurants and hikes in the area. Or they're on 24/7 and it's like, oh, here's a problem. Let me get in touch with your property manager. Right. And then that person is there. Right. So my point is, I think we're going to see a massive shift in the industry where trying to scale without giving up that personal connection, scaling without giving up that personal connection is going to be the biggest problem to solve in our industry moving forward.
Yeah. 100%. Now I'm noticing that too. It's really interesting learning about our guest avatar. We're learning it now. So super interesting, super excited. Awesome, man. Well, enjoy your time, buddy, in Idlewild.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week.
That's right. We'll be back next week. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited to get to the point where we could release the vision of Free Wild, the architecture drawings, all that stuff. So today's day one of all that, and branding and hiring. We got a lot of stuff. 2022 is going to be a freaking powerful year for overnight success. We got a lot going on with overnight success, which I'm super excited about. Hiring new team members, really scaling that, and then really stepping into Free Wild and growing this in multiple locations. So
that's
appreciate it, buddy. I will see you soon.
Yeah, and by the way, thanks to the people who've left us a review. We got some extra reviews on the podcast.
That's awesome.
So we really appreciate it. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, please leave a review wherever you listen, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcast. Those reviews are really, really important for us to get more people to find our podcast. So if you could leave us a review, that will be awesome. We appreciate it, and we will be back on Monday with another podcast. Thank you for listening. Until next time.
Peace.